The whole mess started on a warm Friday afternoon, when the sound of a chainsaw echoed across our quiet street, like something out of a bad dream. At first, I thought maybe one of the neighbors was cutting down a tree. But then I saw them, the HOA's so-called patrol team, two men in orange vests and smug grins, chewing through our perfectly good fence gate like it was their property, not ours. Our gate wasn't fancy, but it was ours. Hand-built by my grandfather back in the late 70s, it had stood through storms, floods, and generations of kids running in and out of the yard. It wasn't just wooden nails, it was family history. Watching those men tear it apart without so much as a knock on the door made my blood boil. I rushed outside, yelling over the noise. "Hey, what the hell do you think you're doing?" One of them, a tall guy with mirrored sunglasses, killed the chainsaw and sneered. "HOA violation. This gate doesn't meet community standards." Community standards. The words were like poison. My grandfather, who was sitting on the porch in his usual rocking chair, looked up slowly from his newspaper. He was 84 then, his skin weathered like leather, but his eyes, sharp blue, unyielding, hadn't lost an ounce of fire. "Community standards, my ass," he muttered, standing up with the kind of deliberate slowness that made everyone around him nervous. He didn't need to raise his voice. He just walked down the steps, leaned on his cane, and fixed those men with a stare that could freeze water. "You just destroyed private property," he said calmly. "That gate wasn't yours to touch." The tall man smirked. "Talk to the board if you got a problem, old man. We're just enforcing the rules." Grandpa's jaw tightened. My whole life, I'd only ever seen that look a handful of times, and each time it meant trouble for whoever stood across from him. This was a man who'd seen combat in a world before most of us were born. A man who'd carried friends out of rice paddies and jungles, who'd stared death in the face and didn't flinch. The HOA enforcers had no idea who they were dealing with. Without another word, Grandpa turned and walked back toward the shed at the far end of the property. I thought he was just going to grab some tools, maybe take pictures for evidence. But when he came back, my heart just about stopped. He wasn't carrying tools. He was dragging out an M60, belt-fed, heavy, unmistakable. The kind of thing you only ever see in war documentaries. The weapon gleamed in the afternoon sun, not rusted, not dusty, kept in perfect condition like he'd oiled it yesterday. The patrol guys froze. One dropped the chainsaw. The tall one's smirk vanished. You can't have that," he stammered, his voice cracking. Grandpa set the M60 up on the porch railing, calm as could be. He didn't point it directly at them, but the message was clear. "You came onto my land. You destroyed what's mine. You want to talk rules? Let's talk about the Constitution." The air felt electric, like a storm about to break. My pulse hammered in my ears. Part of me wanted to drag Grandpa back inside, but another part of me, the part that had grown up listening to his stories of honor, grit, and standing your ground, knew better. This wasn't about a gate. It was about respect, about a man who had given everything for his country and wasn't about to be bullied by a couple of clipboard tyrants. The men scrambled back, muttering threats about calling the sheriff. Grandpa didn't even blink. He just sat back down in his rocker, the M60 resting beside him, his hand tapping the wooden armrest. "You do that," he said, "and tell them to bring a warrant while they're at it." When the sheriff's deputy finally arrived, he wasn't the furious lawman the HOA had probably hoped for. He was a younger guy, but when he saw Grandpa, his whole posture shifted. Respect, recognition, almost like a grandson coming home to a stern but beloved patriarch. "Sir," the deputy said carefully, "I heard there was a firearm involved." Grandpa nodded once. "There was. Nobody got hurt. Nobody was going to. I was making a point." The deputy sighed, looked at the splintered remains of the gate, and then at the two HOA patrolmen standing red-faced and trembling. "You boys didn't have a court order to be here, did you?" They stammered. They fumbled. But the answer was clear. "No," the deputy said firmly. "Then this is trespassing and destruction of property. You're lucky he didn't press charges, or worse." The patrolman sputtered about HOA authority, about how the board had rules. The deputy cut them off. "The HOA doesn't trump the law. You stepped out of line. I swear, if looks could kill, those men would have turned to ash right there under Grandpa's gaze." That night, as the sun dipped low and the cicadas sang, Grandpa sat me down. The M60 was back in the shed, locked up safe, but the weight of the day hung in the air. You see, he told me, his voice soft but steady, bullies don't always look like the ones from the schoolyard. Sometimes they wear badges or carry clipboards or hide behind rules written to keep people small. But it's the same fight, generation after generation. You don't back down. You stand tall. You make them see you won't be broken. I asked him why he still kept that old gun, why he dragged it out today, of all days. He leaned back, eyes fixed on the horizon. Not to fire it, never to fire it, but to remind people that I am not a man to be trampled. Respect is earned, and when someone forgets that, sometimes you've got to jog their memory. The HOA never sent their patrolman again. In fact, word spread fast, and neighbors who'd once been silent about their own fines and threats started speaking up. Meetings filled with angry voices demanding fairness. The board, once so arrogant, found themselves cornered by the very people they thought they controlled. Grandpa never raised his voice, never made speeches. He didn't have to. His quiet defiance had lit a fire in the rest of us. Years later, when he passed, we rebuilt the gate in his honor, stronger than ever. And hanging on the inside, where only family could see, we mounted a picture of him in uniform, young and unshakable, with a small brass plaque beneath it that read, "Stand tall, never bow." That's the lesson I carry now, every day. Whether it's a boss, a neighbor, or a board with too much power, I hear his voice. Respect isn't given to those who demand it. It belongs to those who earn it. And sometimes, the only way to remind the world of that truth is to stand your ground, unflinching with the weight of history at your back.